Hello, today we are going to learn about 10 famous American presidents. There are 46 American presidents. We don't have time to learn all of them. We're only going to learn about 10 of them today. 10 famous American presidents. Now, you should know that to be the president of the United States, you have to be elected, which means that the people in America, all the people in America get together and they vote. You don't have to vote, and not everybody votes, but really, you should vote. And every 4 years, they vote for who's going to be the president. You can only be president twice. Okay, you can only be president twice. So the most anybody can be president is 8 years. Okay, now that wasn't always the rule, but that is the rule today. You can only be the president for 8 years. Now, there's only two rules to be president. Well, first you have to get elected. That's not really a rule. That means that more people have to vote for you than for the person running against you. There's usually only two people running for president. Sometimes there's three. Okay, but that's the usual. So what do you think the two rules are to be the president of the United States? The first one is you have to be 35 years old. So if you're 2 years old or 3 years old or 5 years old or 10 years old, you can't be president. Even if you're 18, you can't be president. You have to be 35 because you get smarter as you get older, and we want you to be at least a little smart. And 35 is really where you can become a good president. So that's 35. The second is you have to be born in the United States of America. So even if you moved from a different place, and let's say you helped out America a lot and you're really, really good. Let's say even you become a governor or a senator or a member of Congress, but if you weren't born in the United States, you can't be the president. That's the rule. So two rules. You have to be 35 and you have to have been born in the United States of America. Those are the two rules of being president. Okay, let's go on and learn about our presidents. So the first president that we're going to learn about is George Washington. Okay. Now, before George Washington was president, he was the general of the United States Revolutionary Army. What that means is that of the land of America used to be under England. England used to rule America, and they did not do it in a nice way. Today, we're friends with England. We weren't always friends. And the people living in America decided they are going to have a war against England, and they're going to become free. And the general, the person in charge of the army, was George Washington. Well, after he won the war, everybody loved George Washington. So they said, you know what? Let's make George Washington our very first president of the United States. We'll make him the first president. They didn't want to have a king because that's what England had, and they didn't like England. So they made George Washington the first president. And they named the capital of the United States, which is Washington, D.C. They named it after George Washington. They also named a state after him, a different state, which they called the state of Washington, Washington State, which is all the way west on top of California. There's actually Oregon and then Washington, and it borders with Canada. And that's George Washington. George Washington was our first president, and this is George Washington. Let's learn about our next president. He's not the second president of the United States, but this is President Abraham Lincoln. Okay, President Abraham Lincoln was the 16th president of the United States. He was number 16. Okay, and they called him Honest Abe because Abe is short for his first name. Abraham, like Avram, was his first name. And during his presidency, something very sad happened. Americans didn't get along. The Americans in the North and the Americans in the South did not get along. And they started a war with each other. Then when one country has a war with the people from the same country and they fight each other, that's called a civil war. And America, when President Lincoln was the president, had a civil war. President Lincoln was the president of the North, and he said we can't allow the South to win, and he fought a war. And after the war, the president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, made a new rule. And this is something that he did. The president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, decided that there should no longer be any slaves. America used to make Black people slaves. And they said, and Abraham Lincoln made something called the Emancipation Proclamation, no more slaves. Okay, let's go on to our next president. Our next president is John F. Kennedy. Everybody called him JFK because those were his initials for short. And John F. Kennedy was very young. You can see he's very, very young in this picture. He was elected as a I think he might have been elected the youngest president when he was elected president. And he comes from a city in Massachusetts called Boston. That's where he was from. And he was a senator before he was president. And when he was president, him and his wife did something very interesting. They redid the president's house, which is called the White House. Maybe one day we did do a tour of the White House, actually. Okay, so they did the president of the United States, and they redid the White House where the president lives, and they made it nice. Him and his wife, Jacqueline Kennedy, the first lady, and they made the White House beautiful. One thing that President Kennedy did during his presidency, which was amazing, was he said, we being the United States of America, put a man on the moon. Until that time, the moon was something far away that nobody had ever been to before. And JFK, President Kennedy, said, we're going to put a man on the moon. He also said something very interesting. Listen carefully to what he said. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And he said, don't always ask for what you're going to do for me. Ask what you can do for other people. And he said that about the United States also, that Americans should sit there and say, what can we do for America? Not just always, what's America going to do for me? Which is unfortunately a lot of times what people say. Okay, let's look at who our next president is. This is President Ronald Reagan. President Ronald Reagan was the president of the United States in 1980. From 1980 until 1988, he got elected twice. He was president. Now, what's interesting about President Reagan is before he was president of the United States, you'll never guess what he did for a living. Before he was president, he was an actor in movies. Okay, he was an actor in movies, and not just like a little actor. He was a very, very famous actor. And he started looking around and he said, you know what? I know I'm in the movies, but I think America could be better. So first he became the governor of California. And he was a very good governor in California. And then America said, well, he was such a good governor, we should have him as president. And they elected him as the president. During this, you see he's giving a speech. This is a famous speech that he gave. And he's got up during one of his speeches. There were some very bad people in a country called the Soviet Union. And they built a wall in a different country called Germany. And they wouldn't let people cross over the wall, even if you had family members. Let's say you had one brother on one side of the wall, another brother on the other side of the wall, and they had their families. They couldn't get together. They couldn't see each other. So President Reagan said, that's not right. And he flew to Germany, and he said that he talked to the leader of Russia, and he announced, he said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And he wasn't scared. He said it the way it was supposed to be. And that's what President Reagan was very famous for. Let's go to our next president. Our next president is President Bill Clinton. President Bill Clinton was a president from the South. He was from Arkansas, where he was the governor of Arkansas. And then nobody really knew who he was, but he was an amazing speaker, and he would get up and give speeches, and people really liked what he had to say. And they said, that man, he should be president of the United States. But he was also known for something else. He knew how to play the saxophone. And when he was running for president, every once in a while, he'd go on TV and he'd play the saxophone. And he would play him. It's a musical instrument that looks like a horn. It goes like that. And he would play the saxophone. And he was really good at it. And people really liked that. That's not why they made him president, but that's what he liked. Bill Clinton, when he was president, he had a daughter who lived in the White House named Chelsea. And his wife, Hillary Clinton, was the first lady. And she became the first lady after Bill Clinton was president to run for the Senate. And she almost became the president of the United States. She ran for the presidency and she just lost by a little bit. She would have been the first lady to become president, and he would have been the first president to become what would be called the first gentleman. Okay, maybe one day. Okay, the next president is President George W. Bush. The reason why we have to say his middle initial is because there was another President Bush. You know who that was? His dad. That's right. He was the second president to be the son of another president, right? So the first one was John Adams, okay, was the son of the president, and George Bush was also the son of a president. During George Bush's time as president, something really bad happened in America. It's called 9/11, where some really bad people came and they flew airplanes into the towers in New York City and into the Pentagon. And it was during his presidency, and he had to start a war to make sure that that never happened again. And there was no more terrorism, no more of those attacks from bad people while he was president. Now, before he was president, he used to own a baseball team. Interesting, the Texas Rangers. Okay, the next president we're going to look at is President Barack Obama, who used to be a senator. He was very young also when he was elected president, okay? And he was very well known for being the first African-American president. A lot of people said that's never going to happen, but President Obama believed that America doesn't choose its president based on their color of their skin, but based on their character and who they are. And he was right, and they chose President Obama, and they elected the first African-American president. Then you had President Trump, President Donald Trump, who was the president, and before he was the president, he was a very successful businessman, and he even was a TV star. He made a TV show out of his businesses. And then, when he was president, he was very friendly to Israel. He moved the American embassy from the Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim because he said Yerushalayim is the capital. And when we're filming this, the president today is President Biden. President Biden, when we're filming this, it's still the first year of his presidency. President Biden was the vice president to President Obama, and he has always said that he loves Israel. So that's President Biden, and those are our 10 famous American presidents. I hope you like this. Shalom.